As you know, I'm going to talk about qualitative analysis, and I'm going to focus on in vivo. And before I talk about it, think about in vivo as a software that will aid your analysis. So this means that you have to have a skill in analyzing qualitative data before you use the software, right? And in general, the software generally helps you to organize the codes that you are developing, or the themes that you are developing from the data that you have, right? So the software doesn't do any magic, right? It could do automatic, what we call it, automatic analysis, where automatic coding, where you allow the software to develop themes for you. But there's a catch here. Sometimes the theme that will come up might not have anything to do with your research question, right? So this means that you could use automated data analysis, but you have to be very careful. You have to make sure that the information, the output, has something to do with your research question that you have. So that brings me back to what is the efficient way of using the software. The efficient way of using this software is uploading all your resources, or all the transcript, all your data into the system, and create containers, right? And then identify significant information based on the research question that you have. You go through your transcript, you identify significant information and put them into those containers. And you can see that it helps in organizing the codes and the themes that you have. And it makes the work a little bit easier compared to manually coding your data. So that's the overview. If you want to know anything like a basic information at in vivo, this is the information, right? So in this presentation, I'm going to give you a brief information about qualitative analysis, the types of analysis, the coding strategy, the types of coding, and then I end up talking about the in vivo, right? As I said, you need to have foundational knowledge about coding and data analysis and what data analysis is all about before you use the software, because software is just like a tool, right? Helping you to reach your destination, right? You can walk to your destination, but having a car will help you to reach your destination on time, right? So see in vivo as like a car helping you to reach your destination on time. So that's all what I'm going to talk about. So what is qualitative analysis? So qualitative analysis, I see as you are preparing your data, you are reducing the data. Why should you reduce the data? There's a lot of information that you collected from participants, or you have collected, that may not have anything to do with your research question, right? So you have to go through and select what you want and summarize that information and present that information to your audience, and making sure that that information is addressing the research question that you have. So you can see qualitative analysis is like data summary. You are just summarizing. You are in between your participant and your audience, and the audience will not have time for you to talk about everything the participant told you or everything about the data. They don't have time. So what do you have to do? You have to summarize, but it's not an ordinary summary. It's a systematic process. So this means that you go through the data, you start your coding. So coding is all about assigning labels to the significant information. And after coding, you have a lot of code. Then you can sort, group them based on their similarities, right, into clusters. And after that, you have themes. And sometimes, in order to, sometimes maybe you can use the themes to address your research question. But other times you have to find out a connection between the themes, right? So that you can be able to adequately address your research question that you have, especially when the themes cannot individually address the research question that you have. And maybe you can also move further to develop a theory. So a theory is just a relationship between themes or concept explaining a process, a situation, or a behavior. That's all about theory in qualitative study. So Qualitative analysis is all about coding, sorting, connecting the themes, and sometimes developing a theory based on what you found, right? That the theory should best represent the data that you have. So as Grace said, if you want to get basic or understanding about coding, I provide a step-by-step process. It's very easy to understand. If qualitative analysis is new for you or new to you, this book will be very helpful. And in I think in chapter 11, I also talk about how to use in vivo, right? Step by step. And I think this information will be very helpful for you. So what are the types of data analysis, right? There are many types, but for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to focus on the two main types, right? The popular ones, right? We have the thematic analysis and we have content analysis. There's a couple of similarities between them, but the main difference is that for thematic analysis, you are going through the data, identifying significant information, and developing themes as you are going through and identify significant information. For content analysis, you first develop themes before you go through your data. Maybe you have a conceptual framework, and based on a conceptual framework, come up with themes or code. We call it coding frame. And then you go through your data and connect the themes and the code to your data that you have. So thematic analysis, you wait until you get to your data, analyze, and develop themes. For content analysis, most of the time, you have already developed the themes based on maybe the literature that you have or based on the theory that you're using. And then you go through the data and then identify significant information and connect those significant information to the existing or already developed themes, right? So that's the main difference. So let's go back to the coding. So coding, as I said, is looking for relevant information. So you ask yourself, what is relevant information? Any information that will help you to address your research question. You have your research question in mind and you go through, you are looking for that information, right? And then you see something that the participant said. And you ask yourself, well, I think this one is can address maybe my research question too. That is a relevant information. It can be a phrase, it can be a word, it can be a sentence, it can be a paragraph, right? So the most important thing is that the information is relevant in helping you to address your research question that you have, right? Then you extract that irrelevant information. So after seeing it, you take it out, right? And then you tag it. Tagging is developing a phrase to represent that significant information, right? So you see how it's all about data reduction. Participant says something, maybe a phrase or a word, or maybe a group of sentences, right? And you look at it and you ask yourself, okay, now I understand what participant is saying. What phrase should I use to represent this information, right? And the phrase is doing two things. The phrase is representing the significant information that you have identified, and at the same time, addressing the research question that you have. So what are the coding strategies that we have, right? In my book, I talk about 3 coding strategies, but I'm just going to give you the popular ones, right? We have description-focused coding, right? And we have interpretation-focused coding. Description-focused coding, as the name implies, you are describing. Participant has given you some information, and your role is to understand that information and describe it to your audience in few words or phrase, right? So you are describing it. So you are telling yourself, what phrase can I use to represent my understanding of what participant is telling me, right? You are just describing. You are like a reporter, right? Or a journalist. You go out there, see what you go and look for what you are looking for, right? A report to your audience for them to make sense of that information, right? So your role is to gather relevant information and describe using phrases to represent those significant information. Interpretation, you go beyond just understanding what they are telling you. You ask yourself, what does this information mean? What is the meaning of what participant is telling me? Right? So you are making sense of that information. Normally you use interpretation where the information participant is giving you cannot directly address your research question that you have. You have to make sense of that information. So you ask yourself, what does information? So based on the meaning, right, you come up with a phrase to represent that significant information. So you see, you identify significant information, you make sure that you understand, you ask yourself, what does it mean, right? And then based on the meaning, you come up with a phrase to best represent the significant information at the same time addressing the research question that you have. So what are the types? And as I said, if you want more information, my books go into detail, gives examples, right? The purpose of this presentation is to most of it focus on in vivo, but I just want to give you that background information, because without knowing more about how to analyze your data in a professional and scholarly way, the tool will not be helpful for you, right? So what are the types of coding? So there are manual coding, right? You can use the traditional way where you can print out your transcript and then you have your highlighter or pencil, you underline significant information and then write a theme or a code, right? Or you can use, Word document where you can use, I think I have a presentation on that. If you have access to this PowerPoint, you can click on that. You get all the information that you have in case you want to do manual coding. So another one is electronic code, not electronic, like software aided coding, right? So we have in vivo, we have Max QDA, we have QDA Miner. This QDA Miner is free. It's not free. That they have one that is free, like QDA Miner Lite, LITE. It's free, but if things are free, you don't have access to everything, every function, right? But if you cannot afford having a full access to in vivo, then you can use QDA Miner Lite, right? And I have a presentation on that. You can email me, or you can, when you go to YouTube, type QDA Miner Lite Philip Edu, you can get access to my presentation on that. We have Atlas TI and we have Deduce. So any other, software, there are other free softwares too. So you can explore that. When you go to LinkedIn, I posted about 12 free software that you could use. But as I said, free means that things are limited, right? So you have to know what you are, you want to get if you use the free ones. So you may ask, should I do manual coding or should I use a software? Whether you use manual coding or software, it doesn't adversely affect the quality of your outcome. The fact that you are using manual coding doesn't mean that your results will be better than that somebody who is using the software, or the fact that you are using a software doesn't mean that your results will be better than somebody who is using manual coding. It's all about comfort level. It's all about time. If you have time to go through all the transcripts, maybe about 100 pages or 200 pages of transcript manually, and you can do it, yes, you can do manual coding, right? But I always say that if you have a lot of data, then manual coding will not be the best for you, right? So using a software will be the best. And you can have a lot of things, you can develop visual representation of your findings without, where you cannot do that using manual coding. But as I said, if you use manual coding, it doesn't mean that your results is less. Right.